Well, it was about time we get a brand new grand strategy game from Paradox, and nothing better than one set in antiquity again. Imperator Rome was just freshly released this year, and if you paid any kind of attention to the title, you already know it received mostly negative reviews on Steam. But is it really deserved? Well, to start off, Imperator Rome plays out like any other grand strategy game out there. There won't be any surprise whether positive or negative at this level. If you played a Paradox game before, you know the recipe already. As a setting here, we start off in 450 AUC, ad urb condita, or the date referring to the founding of Rome, which gives a start date of 303 BC. So why not just use our standard and well-known date system? Well, my guess is that the engine just can't work this way counting up from negative numbers. But honestly, it's not a big deal and you can quickly get accustomed to it. Anyhow, 303 BC gives a great start date. In the west, the Gallic tribes are still fighting between each other to control small parcels of land. The Nordic Germanic tribes are preparing for great migrations. It gave a perfect pretense for large organized states derived from older Eastern societies to emerge, like the nascent Rome and Carthage. Additionally, we have on the east the crumbled down remains of Alexander the Great's empire, each struggling against each other and their own dissident populations. Finally, the map also extending to Industan, where I have absolutely no idea what was going on over there at the time, so yeah. As for playing the game, we have a standard strategy game package. You pick the country of your choice and you get going on with it. Of course, considering the time period, you will have to center your interest on the big guys of the era, because the rest is just too generic to play around with, really. You can get Rome and Carthage, and they give great starting position and have decent power at the start to start painting the map your own color. Additionally, like any good Paradox game, if you shell out the extra bit of money, you can actually get interesting events for Hellenistic states like Epirus, giving you a good incentive to play there. But then that means you have to pay even more to get some customization to the game, which, looking back at Europa Universalis and more specifically Earths of Iron 4, it can be a pretty frightening telltale of what's to come for Imperator Rome. Now let's delve a little bit more into the game mechanics themselves. Another frightening thing that we have present here is the widespread adoption of mana points. Just like in Europa Universalis 4, but there is a good side that we have present here. While yes, you need to spend some abstract representation of your country's military, oratory, civics and religious potential, it is not as constant, as persistent and as annoying as in other titles. I actually do kind of enjoy the way this somewhat faulty system has been implemented here. It doesn't cause unneeded stress and tension onto the player, as your civilization can still progress and play just fine with a total lack of mana points. As for how to gain these mana points, we have a system that is somewhat similar to Europa Universalis. Your ruler offers a base amount depending on his stats, then your government types allows you to use a choice of national ideas. Selecting the ideas you want and spending some oratory mana points to enact them will allow you to match them to the slots offered by your government type, which will greatly improve your mana income. For the political system here, we have a pretty rough surface level politics system present in the game, and it feels like that is not the sector of the game that I had more focus on. We have three different types of government. We have the republics like Rome, we have the monarchy like Macedon, and we have some tribes like pretty much anything else around the world that's not a big household name. These different countries will play in different fashions. The monarchies will have hereditary rulers that rule for life, while the republics will have different families struggling to win the elections, giving them power into the house. And finally, the tribal is a little bit similar to the republican side, but you have more primitive units available, and you also have, for some different tribes, the ability to just pack up all your population and move around. Talking about those politics quickly links us into the character portion of the game. The character management is similar to the preceding title, and I'm talking about Europa Universalis Rome, not Crusader Kings at all. You have various family that will aspire to power in your nation, and granting them titles and letting them command troops will appease them to a certain extent, but you gotta be careful and will balance in how you dish out those freebies, because if a single family or single person gets too much power, they may get very ambitious and start planning cunning plans against your state. But just like as the political system, the character system is very shallow. There's not much to do. You have some interaction with the characters, but it is not like Crusader Kings where you actually lead the life of a character and you have to entertain relationship with other characters. Here you are the state, or a sort of impersonation of the state, and the characters will have their own free will, and they will have their own objective in life, and they will undertake their own different quests and path to achieve whatever they want to do in life. And this brings a problem because as it is built right now, the character management is too plain. There's absolutely no real way to really have an eye onto all the families and all the characters into your realm that is very insightful. If you look into the characters themselves, you get some pretty good information, but at a glance, to see the entirety of your nation, it is a cumbersome, long, and to be frankly honest, pretty useless process to go through each character in the list. And it just does not make you want to be involved into that portion of the game. And it turns out that the character just become a secondary feature that has almost no impact on the game, until they get to some point where they become rebellious and raise their own armies. Otherwise, if you keep them in check and get all the scorned families happy by giving them a little bit of something, it's pretty easy to keep them under control, and you don't really have to delve and dig into the character sheets or a lot of statistics to try to understand more deeply what's going on. Another very simple but important characteristic will be the religion and culture. Even in antiquity, different religion and cultures were present across the entire world. Here we have a very simple representation. You have different culture and different culture groups. So basically your country will have a specific culture, and you will share some affinity with other neighboring cultures, and it will be the same exact type of thing going on for the religions. And basically, as long as you keep within your own groups, it is quite easy to manage. And once you go outside your groups and you start conquering other religions and other cultures, then you have to start dishing out some mana points to either convert them right away to quell down any kind of rebellions, or you can actually just set some long-term investment strategies with the help of the governor to try to convert and assimilate different populations. And now we go into the population aspect of the game, which if you played Victoria 2 you can have very high expectation, but it will definitely not be the case here. The population system is very basic and distilled. You basically have 4 different classes of population, and they will each have their own culture and religion. So that's how they will be interacting as large unique blocks. It's not like Victoria 2 where the population actually kind of, and I think it does, simulate every single individual that's alive on the planet that will have their own desire and dream into very small, precise, defined block by their own jobs and everything. Here we just have slaves, freemen, citizens, and tribal men. Depending on the civilization of your country, you'll have more or less citizens, and each class will generate their own produce. For example, the slave will generate income, the freeman will generate manpower, the tribal man will generate slightly less manpower, and the citizen will generate research points. We have a slightly interesting way the technology has been implemented into this game. So here we have 4 different fields of research. You have the martial, civic, oratory, religious advances. Each of these will be regulated by a percentage of research depending on the total amount of citizens that generate research point, as well as the talent and skill of the specific researcher assigned to one of these advances. And each level you advance on a technology will unlock 3 inventions that can be used by spending a little bit of civic power to assign them. And this allows you to really build and select what the technology you receive will bring onto your nation. So for example, if you have a lot of martial invasion, you'll have a much stronger army than any other neighbor. If you invest more in religious invention, you will have a more stable realm than anyone else. And this is actually pretty well done. It's basic and simple to understand, but it does the job pretty well. And I will be talking a little bit about trading. Each different cities will generate a trade good, and depending on the number of slaves you have, you'll be able to generate multiple copies of that trade good. Then all these cities pool their goods together into a province, allowing this province to use the bonus from each different trade good, allows you to export these trade goods for money. The trade goods vary a lot in what they bring, but you have some pretty basic goods. For example, you have the strategic resources like iron, horses, elephants that will allow you to create specific units according to what strategic resource you have available in a specific province. So if you have wood, you can build triremes, and if you have camels, you can build camels army. You also have more like food stuff that allows you to have a bigger growth, and there are plenty of different goods that all provide a little bonus to your province. Additionally, under trading, when you have surplus into your capital, you receive bonus that is spread across your entire nation. So the trading into capital is very important, and generating trade routes from there will allow you to have more bonus available for your nation, strengthening the entirety of your country. Talking about strength, we will have to go into the core portion of this game. Of course, I'm talking about military and warfare. Military is actually pretty good, right? If you're used to total war games or really any other kind of real-time strategy game, you may feel that it is a bit too generic, but really here what we have as unit types are really grand classes of them. For example, every single country will have heavy infantry, archers, camels, elephants. Everyone share the same basic unit types, but each nation, depending on their research, their ideas, their traditions, we have bigger bonus to certain units. And the composition of these units in your army groups is crucial. If you have an army composed of 20,000 heavy infantry and you try to siege a town or a fort into a mountain range, you can forget about that. Every single one of them will die, and you will deplete the entirety of your manpower trying to take a single little fort in the Alps. But if you have different group of armies, like light infantry for sieging and heavy infantry for the combats, you can actually deploy a more strategic approach onto the world map, and you will be able to manipulate dozen or even 20 or even 30 different units onto the map to coordinate them and attack. And you'll also at that level will need to manage your manpower to ensure that you always have a decent amount of manpower in backup. Because while yes, it could be important to spend 1 million manpower to defeat Macedon or Carthage, you have to be prepared for an invasion from a Germanic tribe at any moment, and you will need manpower to deal with that, or a lot of mercenaries, because also there's different mercenaries available onto the map. And I do enjoy the way that the mercenaries have been implemented, rather than being just a random group available anywhere in the world that will spawn into your capital. The mercenaries are actually physically present onto the map at all time, and as your country evolves, they will become larger and more powerful with better compositions and better leaders assigned to the specific group. And with a little bit of military mana point, you can hire them up right away. And while they're expensive to run, they are even more expensive, requiring 2 years of monthly wage to dismiss them. So using mercenary is great to preserve your manpower and your young boys in your country, but it can have a pretty straining effect onto your coffers. And just like in any other Paradox game, assigning characters onto your army will allow them to lead troops into battle, and since each character has their own ambition and everything, they will be able to get cohorts loyal to them in the armies they have, and they will even be able to raise their own troops into the army that they will pay the wages of, and that if ever for some reason they decide to not like the current leader and separate from the state, they will have their army following them. And the way the disloyal general has been implemented in the game is very fascinating, as making big massive death stack of hundreds thousand troops is not a viable strategy, because the character that leads them can at any time really become your enemy. So you have to make very small portion of your army located to multiple units, giving the opportunity of any really character with bad intention to be easily dismissed and dissolved into a sea of loyal characters. It will be important to have these characters leading your army, because their martial skill will allow them to excel at combat. And that is pretty it for the warfare and military. It is a very big portion of the game and essential portion of the game, but it is quite simple and easy to understand when you take a few minutes to look into the stats. I find personally that it is the most enjoyable combat that we've seen from Paradox compared to Crusader Kings or to Europa Universalis. The combat just feels fluid and natural, and it is fun and enjoyable. And what's more fun and enjoyable than the combat itself is winning wars, because it allows you to conquer vast amount of lands, and you only need a casus belli at the start of the game to allow you to invade your neighbors for pretty much any reason that's valid. And once you have conquered any kind of land, you can ask it into a peace deal. And what I like about Imperator Rome compared to the other titles is that it's very easy and enjoyable to acquire land through peace deals in this game, and it allows you to paint the map very quickly. In the game, I think the best feature that we have available lies into the game engine itself. It has been greatly improved from previous titles like Earths of Iron. To start off, loading in and out of game is almost instantaneous. The game offers a very flexible and smooth rolling camera with the right mouse button, and if you plug in a controller, you will have a crazy amount of control over the camera. The map looks beautiful also. It's been moved from a weird plastido looking substance onto a beautiful portion of a globe, and really I've been stunned looking at this map for the first time in videos, and even when I boot up the game for the first time, just zoom out and it just looks so beautiful and peaceful. It's like a better version. It is definitely the best map from any Paradox game since Victoria 2 without any map. And hopefully with the future updates that we'll have on the title, this will keep going on becoming more beautiful and better. But just like any other Paradox game, we also have very beautiful music. It is very smooth, very nice to listen to, and it's not intrusive or annoying, and it doesn't repeat that much. I know a lot of people reported bugs where only 3 songs play and it's over, but I haven't had this problem. I had the music constantly playing and organically, smoothly changing as like I'm going into war, I'm going into peace period, and it's been very enjoyable and lovable to play the game with the music, the soundtrack present. In conclusion, to come back to the initial question of if the game deserved the mostly negative reviews on Steam, if you've seen my past review on various DLCs and games from Paradox, you might be led to believe that I will have a field day blasting the game to oblivion, but in all honesty, the game doesn't deserve the hate it's been getting right now. Hear me out here. I do not claim that the game is a masterpiece. There is a lot of stuff that's missing in the game that will make it more enjoyable, and of course that doesn't mean that anything else will be added to the game, and we have to take it as a part of, as if it will be fulfilled right now forever as it is. Obviously that will be a bad vision to have, because you will probably need to dump an incredible amount of money to get all the DLCs that we will receive in this game, if they start making DLCs, which will most likely be the case. Right now, as Imperator Rome stands currently at this moment, I think it's still an enjoyable game, and I can see a value in what's currently offered, and I can see a great framework for future expansion onto, with brand new mechanisms to add variety in peacetime and dealing with the population, and hopefully a lot of work into the political system and the naval combat, which are very lacking, and also in the character gestion. Just little tip, Paradox, take that in account. But yeah, currently looking at the already released development blogs for the next patch, it gives an inspiring insight in what we'll probably be able to play one day in the far future, with also probably a much lighter wallet in our pockets. Hopefully you've enjoyed this quick review of Imperator Rome, and if you did, why not check my previous review of Europa Universalis Rome, or whatever else the YouTube algorithm decide that you should be watching right now. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.